About using defender data.
All right, I'm back. One thing I wanted to say that I had written down on my notes from the last presentation that I never included in my PowerPoint. Evidence doesn't really matter to me as a lawyer. And I don't care which side of the courtroom I sit on. So when I walk into a courtroom, I really kind of try to get myself in the idea of, all right, you just tell me where I'm going to sit. Then I'll try the case from wherever you tell me to sit. And the reason I say that is when we get together, particularly when we get together as a group in CLEs and stuff like that, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but we get into the habit of where I have a bunch of camaraderie. We're all going to identify. We're all public defenders. We're all, we go in and we sit not near the jury. We sit on the opposite side, and we sort of get a little bit trapped in that collective thought of only looking at the world from one point of view. And I only say that to remind you, there was a time when you were in law school and they were trying to train you, and I didn't go to USC, but I'm pretty sure they didn't train you to be a public defender. They just trained you to be a lawyer. And sometimes we forget that, but I always try to remind myself that I was taught to be a lawyer. That meant I could try any case from either side. And that goes back to even making my notes and how do I do that. I'm trying to think about it from both sides with an emphasis on my side, but not completely ignoring it. And so I didn't want to forget that. All right. I try to come up with a clever name for what is probably not the most exciting of presentations for you, but here it goes. I'm going to try to give you a little bit of an overview of defender data that you can utilize, things you may not be aware of, maybe you are aware of them, I don't know. There's a lot of inconsistency in what we think you all know and don't know about defender data. It's not easy for us to figure out what you know, what you use, what you don't use. So some things you may already know, and I'm sorry if I'm going over something that you already know. But hopefully we can build from here as far as the baseline. All right, trying to get it to be that you're not just entering data or having your assistant enter data and it being all about statistics and what your boss is making you put into the thing. It has obviously some tools to help you organize your case, make notes, calendar events, and use documents not only in creating them but storing them as well. Let's get the first thing off the table. Defender data is not the greatest application ever created. Certainly Google's going to argue with that, but I'm not here to, I had a big hand in reformatting it and working on what's in there and what's not in there and reshaping a lot of that. So I'll take my responsibility on things that aren't good in there. But I'm not here to trumpet it as the greatest thing ever. What I'm here to do is to say, it's what you got. It's what everybody has in common, and you should be aware of what you're able to do with it. And that's really how I took what I'm supposed to do up here, is just inform you on things to make you aware of them so that maybe you'll be able to use them, maybe you won't. I don't know. You can make your own decision. All right. There's a case summary printout. I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a case summary printout that you can get. And let's see if this PowerPoint will illustrate it for us. That's basically telling you how to do it, where to go to do it. If you get it from your case, when you go into your case and you go to that little print icon, you can click on this set of choices for you. Once you get to it, and voila, you get a little case summary printout. Some people are going to want to take that. You can print it out, put it in your file, take it with you to court. I double checked before I put this in. We all have this. And there are, and I know you all are aware of this, there are some documents or reports or some little tweaks that some circuits will have and other circuits won't. There's sort of a baseline, and then there are other little tweaks that are different because it used to be that everybody had their own program, and then part of what we did was we tried to consolidate it into a base form that everybody was building off of, and what got included and what got left out sometimes was just idiosyncratic to that place, so we didn't give it to everybody, and sometimes it was just a matter of choice. Doesn't mean it's not there. I tried to do things that I know everybody has. You may have a report or a document or whatever that is better and does whatever it is I'm showing you better than what I'm able to show you. That's okay. It doesn't mean I'm not aware of it. It's just that I'm trying to hit everybody as best I can. I know we have, and I'm pretty sure if you really wanted it, you could get it. In 13th Circuit in Greenville and Pickens, there's a report that we call the plea detail report. And I looked before I left, and I forget how to define it, but it's a special report for our circuit or whatever. And all it is when we put an event in for our pleas, so you get a card in for, or whatever notice for your plea day, our staff creates the event plea day. They put in the information for that plea day for that client, with the date and so forth. Well, we have a report that collects all of that, and what it does is the printout, and I should have put it in there, but the printout is going to have the guy's name. Do we have discovery? If we did, what's the date we got? Do we have a plea offer? Because we have an event for that. And I point, because that's what I actually have in my court. When I go to my plea day and I've got my people, that's the sheet I use. You could use this sheet. You just have a whole bunch of them if you wanted to. You probably could get that sheet that I'm talking about. You could probably develop your own. And if you wanted to develop your own based on what you had, do it. You can email me. I'm happy to try to sort out whether or not, or point you in a direction to figure out whether or not defendant data could get it set up for you. I say that to encourage you to be thinking about it. You're not limited just to what you have. And you may have an idea, or you may have a thought about, I'd like to do it this way. I'd like to make the machine be able to spit this out for me. Okay, do it. It's okay. I'm not, you're not handcuffed to exactly how it is. And you're not required, obviously, to use it, but there's another tool that's there. You can create a printable list, which could substitute for your plea days, however you want to do it. But one thing you could do, and that's basically what it would look like on the screen, and then you can literally just print that out as a PDF. And this is going to explain to you how you actually get there. But you go from the search screen. You could obviously limit your criteria on how you want to search. I want to see all my current jails that are open, or I want to see all the jails I closed this year. Whatever it is, once you get it into that search screen, sometimes it's not conducive to just being on the screen. Especially like if I'm going to go to the jail and I'm going to see 10 people that I just got appointed on, it might just be easier for me to have the list and work through my list, or maybe not. It's just, again, another tool that you may be able to utilize to make yourself either more organized or more convenient, whatever you want to do. It's a tool there. You're going to decide how you want to use it or whether you want to use it. There's a plea disposition worksheet. It looks like that. It's going to be individual to the client, and it's going to list the charges. Theoretically, you could take that in during your plea, put your information where you want it to on that sheet. Obviously, then give it to an assistant or somebody. Then all your information is there. I personally don't use it. I'm not sure a lot of us in our office use that. The front of our file folders basically has that. So when I'm doing a plea, or hell, even a trial at the end of the trial when it's sentencing, the front of my folder has the information. I literally write it on there, and it's on the front of my folder. I'd rather do that than have it inside, because whenever you pick up the folder, you can see everything that's going on. If you have that, great. You may not need this. If you don't have it, you may need something like this. You may want something entirely different than that. This goes back to what I said before. You could figure it out, tell me, and I'll try to see if we can make it happen. Again, this is how you get to that spot. This one is a report as opposed to having to go inside an individual case. and then get there from the case. This is a little bit funkier. You're going to have the case file number to plug in to find the right one that you need. But that would be a predisposition worksheet. And that's what it looks like. All right, annotating your file. Basically, this is talking about making notes. I don't make notes in Defender data. I know that's weird. And I'm not trying to do this, do as I don't do kind of thing. But to me, it's a tool. It's not gotten to the point where it's a requirement unless your boss says it's required to be put into Defender data. Then your boss is the final say on that. But it is a tool. In our office, we run the gamut. Probably the oldest lawyer in our office solely uses his notes in Defender data. I wouldn't have guessed that. I mean, Tim's how old? 80? He might be in his 70s, but he uses. That's what he does. He uses Defender data. He goes to the jail. He comes back. I think he actually uses. I think what he does is he goes to the jail. He writes his notes, and then he goes back to his office and he puts his notes into Defender data. I don't know why, but I would just skip the handwriting and put it in. But nonetheless, here you have a guy in his 70s or 80s, and he's using Defender data. That's all he does, to put his notes. And there is a convenience factor, because when a call comes in, staff looks at it, they're looking at the notes that he wrote and put in there. And he doesn't have a situation where he made all these notes at the jail. He comes in, hey, assistant, put those in Defender data for me, and the assistant's going to be like, that would not make for a good working relationship. But he's figured out a way. I personally don't use notes directly in Defender data like that. If my assistant takes a lot of our assistants, that's what they'll do. If they take a phone call or something happens, they'll put it in, because they don't often have the file right in front of them to write into. They'll put the note in there. It helps them, because whoever answers the phone may not be the assistant for that case. So there are a lot of positives for doing that. You got to figure out whether or not from that tool standpoint you want to do that. This is how you would do it. You go right from the case file to doing it. You can make it a sticky. You could make it, get fancy with it if you want. You can make alerts to it. It's like Office, Outlook, and Word. They're more powerful than we tend to use them for. So if you want to spend the time figuring it out, you can. But you need to know that it's a tool that's there, and that's what it would look like. And because of the way we reconfigured the way cases are presented to you in Defender data, that they're more client-centered than they used to be. You get a client, and you can see all his closed cases, open cases. As you obviously move through the client's separate cases, the notes and calendar, everything kind of goes together. So it is very helpful in that sense. It's a calendar, ain't nothing fancy to it. You could add things, you could print off of it, it doesn't sync. Throw your apples or really tomatoes, whatever you want. Probably the most frustrating thing that I've got people ask me. They're working on it, that's the best I could tell you. But in my experience, I got a Chromebook, I got a smartphone. There's like 17 freaking calendars, because you got to sign up. You get a Google thing, and then you got your work, so you push through your work. But I've had a Hotmail account for forever, so I'm not going to get rid of that. It's like, someday I won't have to have a calendar, and that'll be great. But right now I have to have a calendar. Templates, this is one of those areas where I don't have a good sense of who uses what, how often, what people have. I think as far as templates go, there is probably a pretty wide variety throughout each circuit, because the templates tend to probably be created to answer a specific problem in a specific circuit or a specific county, the way it's done there. I think the main thing to know about templates is, that's what one would look like. That little merge fields thing comes up. All right, main thing you need to know is this. There are two areas of templates. There's a template where it's not connected to a case, and you're only going to have access to that if you're an administrator. or you have rights to do that. I don't know how each individual office is set up. In our office, Chris doesn't have access to templates from an administrative standpoint. I do. What he has access to is when he's in his case and he wants to create a document out of a template, then he obviously can go to that and create the document. That's just going to be different depending on however your office is. What you need to know is that that's possible. So if you've got a letter, a motion, whatever document you wanted to create, it's in mine somewhere. I did a plea summary sheet one time where I was just say, if I'm in my file on a certain case, I could click that template and it would pull all the information I wanted to get me a quick, guy's name, birthday, whatever I wanted, put that in, and I just have to add sort of my extra notes that the machine wouldn't know. I put that in there. I didn't end up using it a whole lot, but I created and put it in there just so I thought it might help. So you need to know there's two places. On the template that might be able to be used by everybody in your office, or more than just you, you're gonna have to go to your administrator to have it created, or ask me, or how you would end up doing it if your administrator doesn't know. Basically, it's like a Word document that you can put fields in, and it takes the fields from the program. I mean, there isn't anything more to it than that. But when you're in your program, then obviously you can use, in your own case, and you can use a template to apply the information that's out of your case. I think what a lot of people don't realize is when you're in that document in your case, you can erase fields, put in fields, you can do everything you want. All the fields in that merge fields, they're all available to you. It's just within that individual case document. So you can make anything you want out of it, and you can open a document and start putting fields in there and create anything you wanted to, but it would be for that case. If you wanted it to apply to a different case, there are ways to figure out how to turn that into a template for everything else. So just keep that in mind. Attachments. Basically, you can attach anything that the computer, for the most part, is capable of dealing with. So your desktop is probably the broadest array of file types that it can handle, videos, PDFs, all that kind of stuff. Your Chromebook will be limited. Your phone will be limited. Some phones are limited by PDFs, all those kinds of things. You can drag and drop. You just can't do it for Outlook emails. But it's just 2 steps rather than 1. So if you open up Defender Data and you minimize it and you made it kind of small on one side, you can drag it into the Documents tab, into the file folder in the Documents tab. So you can attach your Word document, whatever. You can attach your picture for your case. I used to use it before Dropbox. There's a couple of trials that I did. I just use it as Dropbox. I put every photo there was in the case. I just put it into Defender Data, and I would use it before there was Dropbox. I would just go into it and just use it that way. That could be helpful, better than Dropbox, depending on the circumstance. But you're able to do that kind of a thing. Again, don't know how many people know that. With your emails, the way to do the email is, if it's Outlook, go into Outlook, drag your email to your desktop, and then it'll just be on your desktop as a little icon. And then drag from your desktop into Defender Data. That email will then be in that individual client's file. So now when you want to preserve that plea offer you got from the prosecutor, and then, and you don't want to have to just have it printed, or you just want to have an electronic file, and you don't really want to, you want to limit what you print, boom, it's in there, and you've got it. So that is a really good thing. I know a lot of lawyers in our office are using that to, again, annotate their file to keep track of what's going on in the case. All right, let's talk about in court. So you can use Defender Data, obviously, when you're in court. There's a web version. So if you have a Chromebook, there's a web version on here. So as long as I've got Wi-Fi access in the courtroom, I'll just turn it on, log in, and I'm able to use it in court. John Krangle's one of the lawyers in our office. He doesn't have any files. He freaking goes in with this thing. He's doing a plea, and he's standing there, and he's got the little Chromebook, and he's talking. He looks at the thing, and he talks to the judge. I was like, whoa, I can't. I guess I'm still too old. I like my little folder to do it, but he's able to do it. He's able to incorporate it. He spends his time doing it all on his computer. He don't even have to do it on the Chromebook. He does it at his desktop. It'll get pulled up here. The access you have is the same as the desktop if you're in the web version, but again, limited by those file types are limited to based on the device and all that. You can use it on your phone. I got it on my phone. I don't use it a whole lot like in court on my phone. I have used it when the prosecutor was like, "Don't you all represent this guy?" And I was like, "I don't know." And I pulled it up on my phone in the middle of court and just looked up to see if we ever represented the guy. So that's the extent to which I've used it in court. I'm sure other lawyers maybe use it a little bit more. It has its limitations because you really can't put a whole lot of information in other than events like your schedule. But in terms of pulling up quick information about a case, I mean, you can get it. It looks like that if you pulled up the app. Once you get into the app, that's what it looks like. You can go to your app store and just Google Defender Data or search for Defender Data and the app will come up. And that's really all I've got as far as my slides. Any questions about Defender Data? Anything you don't understand except for Chris?
That's the question I had. I put photographs and things like that on Defender Data so that I could have access to them in court. But there's a limit as to the size that you can upload, and I've tried to zip the file and do all this other stuff, and just could not get it on there. There's no way around that.
I don't know, Ryan. Is there a way around that?
Unfortunately, no. There is a limit to what you can actually upload. We would have to. It would be a step we'd have to take to making an actual server in our state to be able to take our files. So that
Yeah.
It used to be pretty unlimited. People put videos on there.
Right. Because remember, if you don't realize this, what Defender Data does with all the information on all the cases is permanently maintains it. So much so that, all right, so let's say I got my client's file was just opened in Defender Data today. Okay, so there was all the information. I come tomorrow and I put in different information. They will go back to yesterday if I need them to. Which also means they'll go back to the day before, they could turn the clock back for a case, like basically to its inception. Because what they're doing is they're saving all of that data. Why? And they need to be able to do that because shit happens and all of a sudden something happened, like the case got eaten up for some reason on the computer, garbled or whatever. They turn the clock back and there's your case again that you thought you know, like we've all done with a Word document, you didn't save it and all of a sudden you have to restart it. It's already done that for you. So that's part of the problem and the challenge of adding, and when you add all the attachments and all the documents, it does everything that's in there is being saved in real time and be able to turn back.
Now, I will point this out. There's a solution of Word we're working on trying to plug into it and making it able to link to outside applications. You had a while or the other where it's stored in Dropbox, it's getting a higher quality. But we'll see how well that goes.
Right. And that's just the nature of applications and being able to kind of merge them. It gets complicated and stuff like that. It's not that the discussions aren't taking place and we don't appreciate some of the things y'all might appreciate. It's just in trying to get it onto a level that is available to everybody and, you know, and is actually doable is something you work on. But anytime you got an idea, I mean, send it on up to your boss or you email me. I really, you know, usually it's me, Ryan, and one of the guys from Defender Data that end up sitting down and trying to talk about how can we implement whatever somebody asked about or something we thought about. And a lot of the things that are now in Defender Data 7 is because we talked about them and said, yeah, we need that. Let's put that in there. So are there any questions, things you want to know? If you want to bitch about something, go ahead. It's all right. We can take it. We're not that sensitive. Statistics is important. Like in that first slide, it's annoying it's annoying to me, and I'm one of the people who said ask Ryan, whenever we're in there, the question becomes, do we give the user an option? Do we not give them an option? No option, you gotta put it in. That's me. Mainly because I know myself, and I'm like, I don't wanna have to put it in, but if the machine won't let me go to the next step until I put that piece of information in, then I'm gonna put it in, and then everybody will have reasonable statistics that you can rely on instead of, to be honest with you, currently what we have is unreliable. So something in Charleston, something in Union, we can't compare those to each other very well at this point. That's why the whole platform changed. We're trying to move on from that point. So that's really what's going on there. Our goal wasn't to mess with you. Yeah.
Is there a way to include the booking photo on the case summary?
We have them in ours. In the summary,
Yeah.
probably. We would just have to ask them to move it over into whatever document they've created. I'm sure they probably could. We can ask as to whether there was some app limitation as to why they didn't do it from the beginning. My guess is it was just that was already in there. The picture is a new thing in Defender Data 7, and they probably just never.
That's a great way to jog my memory of what
Mm-hmm.
we're doing.
Yeah, just email me or Ryan with that, and we could ask Defender Data if they're able to do that. I don't think it would be. It's already information that's in there, so it's not like it's adding anything to it.
So when you're running reports, I mean, I think I have a problem with this, and it's probably user error, but I've asked a bunch of other lawyers in my office. The difference between open and active, like the A, and then also jail and jailed other, like if they're at SCDC, and then when you're running your full report, like when you want all your clients, it comes up, I mean, they might have 10 charges and they're listed 10 times. And then your jailed other people don't show up on your jail report, and your open active shows closed clients. I mean, it's just, am I not running the right report?
No, there
is
isn't anything that you've done wrong that I could tell. Here's what's going on. Those reports were generated for an older version of Defender Data. That's the problem. And because most every place had different reports trying to answer the same question, which was part of the reason why there was a shift over to say, let's have a platform where everybody can agree. And one of the last things we haven't converted yet are those reports. And what we've been working on is building a report that is reliable so that if you run it in Charleston, if you run it in Greenville, we know you're going to get the same answers and it's going to count the same things, rather than go through everybody's individual reports and then just fix the individual reports, which I think nobody has enough time to do that. We're trying to put together, and we've got some mock-up reports that I've said, I think if we can answer all of these questions, then while it'll be global, there may be things in there that you don't need, but it should answer all the questions you would generally ask. How many open cases do I have? How many jails do I have? How many magistrate cases do I have? Trying to get it to answer those questions. That's why you're having that problem. I have that problem. I actually use the general search screen. I use that way more than I use reports because I can mess with it and I can get the answer that I think I want, and I do think it's a little bit more reliable in terms of the number I'm getting. One of the frustrations I have is I want to be at the point where we have that report that I know I can rely on that. Another thing you all need to know, even if you're not going to use it, even if you don't use reports or whatever, you have to realize that, and because you're responsible for this, the status of your case, the open jail, all those little various things. What we did is we created categories. So there's a parent category of open. There's a parent category of closed. Everything falls into one of those two categories. So if you define it as open active, okay, the machine's looking at it as an open case. But what you're able to do on the search screen, and if I could find, I don't think I have the drop down for the search screen, but you can actually search based on the parent category. So that if you want to say, I want to know all of my current open cases, you don't have to pick all the sub-children, open active, open jail, open. You just go to the main category and pick the open. The other reason that's important is you need to know what it means when you're putting the information or somebody's putting the information in Defender data for you. Or if you're trying to come up with a category that you want. Because what a lot of people ended up doing, and it ended up being, that's why there's a lot of different ways of skinning the same cat, is they wanted open active. And then some people said, well, I don't need to say active, it's just open. So you're all talking about the same thing, but you added a whole bunch of extra words or left out words. So it means if you look at your report, it means one thing to you, but it means something to somebody else, and that's just a waste of time. And so we're trying to work through that. I'm harping on it right now with y'all because I want you all to understand that in those categories, there's meaning to some of them. And if there's a category that you think has no meaning, then you need to say something to your boss or somebody else that is using it. Because if you don't even know what it means in your own office, then why do we have an extra category that's going to end up floating around somewhere in some other county? You know, don't be afraid to say something. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think a lot of people end up using Defender data and just go, all right, well, that's how it is, and they just make their workaround. Everybody just does a workaround to get what they want out of the program, and this kind of leaves it as it is. That's fine. You can do that. But I always say, when you want to come bitching about how it was and why I can't do this or how come it's different here and all, well, I will gently say some of that responsibility falls back on you if you didn't say anything about how something was working. Not all of it, that's granted, but you can't just kind of be like, oh, well, whatever. It should have done this from day one. Great. It would have been nice if it would have done everything from day one, but without anybody's input and without anybody actually trying to use it and making comments on how it could be better, it probably wasn't going to roll out perfectly the first time. But that's how it is. We don't have unlimited funds like prosecutors, and so we can't just hire Defender data 24/7 on our program. We're just like anything else we do in public defense. It takes time. My suggestion is don't give up on it. One, because there's nothing else. You're not really going to be able to bring in something else that substitutes for it, whether we like it or not. That's the real issue to me. And so, anything else? And I promise I won't yell at you just because you asked for a question. I wasn't trying to yell at you, but. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.